right. Good afternoon again. I hope everything is okay and my recording is working. Now, I'll try to share my screen if it works. I hope you're seeing my uh, 1301 homepage. Okay. Just give me a feedback if in case you are not seeing anything. And we are still in module 5. Where is my homepage? Internet seems very slow. Okay. Now you may be seeing module 5, and we will do our week 2 assignment, the 2 journals. And I would like also to add, okay, oh, we still have next week. So we'll just focus on the journal assignments, okay? So let's begin with the journal uh, on ethical egoism and utilitarianism, okay? So I will be using our PowerPoint notes, ethics, ethical position and theories, and we will try to answer these questions here. So my first best practice is to highlight all these questions. And I would like to paste this one um, in my Word document. Right, what's happening with my Word document? All right. So I will transfer the text from the guide questions to a Word document. I hope you're seeing still my Word document. And this will be the questions that we would like to answer. Okay. And I think all these questions may not be difficult for you to answer. Now, the good part here, we already started the vocabulary last time, and the vocabulary could help you bring up the concept already. Now, in your vocabulary, if you remember that ethical egoism is a consequentialist ethics. You remember that, okay? Or ethical theory. So it's a theory that understands right or wrong actions based on the consequences of the act. So the judge is the consequence, not the act itself. The act's judgments or the judgment about the acts only follows when the consequences are examined. Now, what is this kind of ethical theory? Okay. Now, this is a consequential ethical theory that says, okay, an act, rule, or trait is good, is right when it promotes the self interests. Okay, so you can find this one in your handouts. If you look at your handouts, this will be in the middle part when you discuss teleological ethics and specifically egoism. And there is egoism here. An action, decision, or rule is right if it promotes one's self interest. And it is grounded on the theory called psychological egoism. So this is grounded on psychological egoism that says human is by nature selfish. So that is easy to follow. Now, but we have another question, part of number one, is about proponents. Okay. So what is the proponent or who are the proponents? So proponents, okay, are Thomas Hobbes, okay, and Ayn Rand. So you have two proponents, Thomas Hobbes and Ayn Rand. Okay, and let us answer number two. So number two asks the question, what is the ethical foundation of this theory, citing Thomas Hobbes and Ayn Rand? Okay, so ethical foundation, okay, which is the grounding of the theory. And that's the meaning of that. The grounding of the theory is from the understanding of human nature. Okay? So that is how ethical foundation is all about. Where is the theory of right or wrong grounded? So this one is grounded on the human nature. Hobbes would say that human is by nature selfish. And so there may be, okay, a conflict of interest to happen. So if everybody is selfish, so there's possibility that your interest and my interest will not agree or will in clash or in conflict. Okay, so how will you handle that conflict? So there may be possible conflict of interest to happen. So how to solve it? How to solve it? Now, Hobbes recommended, okay, the only way to solve the conflict of interest is to surrender our rights to the centralized government. And that's very clear in our situation nowadays. If everybody has their own interests, then we have one central voice that everyone should follow. Just like in the highway, if I am so selfish, then I want to come first, to go home first, and I want to arrive first. So everybody thinks the same way. But then the government sits in, oh no, you cannot do that. There must be a speed limit. So you must be able to stop or slower down because of the traffic regulations we have. So even I'm selfish because there is a government that says do this and do that, then I will stop my selfishness, or it will resolve my own selfishness. Okay. Now, Ayn Rand did not um, think what Hobbes is thinking. Ayn Rand has a different solution. And Ayn Rand's solution was um, to give each one total freedom. And we call this one uh, libertarian approach. Libertarian approach give everybody the total liberty so that everyone doesn't need a government or centralized government, but each one will control somebody's interests. So by libertarian approach, we compete, we improve ourselves, okay, because of that freedom for self-development, we improve ourselves, thus um, keeping up oneself to the good and to the right, okay, makes me uh, survive. Okay, it's like it's like competition in business, for instance. And this is the model that capitalist system called laissez-faire follows. Give everyone freedom to raise their business or to establish business. And no wonder if you see in all four corners of the intersections, for instance, there are gasoline stations. We don't need four gasoline stations in the corner, but because our economic system allows that to happen, and that is an example of a libertarian approach. Allow them to build, to establish, and then allow them to compete. So, does that help improve services? Does that help improve pricing? Or does that improve presentations? Yes. And who benefits that? Of course, the people. um, we are looking at the price of one gasoline station and said, oh, this is cheaper, we go there. Now, if three other gasoline stations will not do something for their pricing to lower their own pricing, then no one will go to them. And so that helps regulate self-business. Although they want profit, but I cannot just raise my business into big profit precisely because there are other competitors around me. That's the whole concept, even in improving ourselves in business, is also true in workplace. Is it true in academics? So we should improve ourselves. We should study more. We should enrich ourselves. And no wonder in your workplace, perhaps there are many opportunities of learning and development. You retrain yourself, get new skills, get new knowledge, and that keeps you your job. Because if you don't, someone is waiting for you, and that is very important. Uh, part of Ayn Rand solution. Now, Hobbes' solution is good because this is to start how people should regulate each other. I like Hobbes when you start building a government because Hobbes would say at the very beginning, before any government, everyone is so selfish, and so they compete, but to beat somebody's strength, for instance, it's like survival of the fittest in a way because of conflict of interest. And so the government will be the one to resolve that. Okay, so I hope this helps. There's one question here. What is the nature of human being then, which gives rise to ethical egoism? Okay, the nature of human beings is selfishness. This is where the grounding is. So everyone is selfish. So by the way, we should acknowledge this as a descriptive, something that informs us who we are. I don't object this idea that human is by nature selfish because that is our human nature. So if someone says to me, Joe, you are selfish, I would say, thank you. You give me a kind of information of who I am. It must not make me angry because something that is being said about my human nature. However, there is a difference between a descriptive versus prescriptive because a descriptive says, I am by nature selfish. And what is that prescriptive? When I say I should be selfish or you should be selfish because you are by nature selfish, there's a different story. Why? Because even by nature I'm selfish, I could still be altruistic. I can give, I can share, I can help out to others. Now, nature versus what ought to be done could be different thing. So if even a person is by nature selfish, he should not necessarily be selfish on the process. He could still be self-giving. He still be other-centered or community-centered. That is the point here. Uh, Hobbes argued that we are by nature selfish, but it doesn't say we ought to be selfish on the process. Now, ethical egoism justifies its action of selfishness precisely because we have this nature as being selfish. I hope that is clear. And you can find that one in your handouts in here. Hobbes proponents here and the surrender to the centralized government, and then Ayn Rand solution. Okay, that could be added if you want to develop more. Now, utilitarianism. So we will develop 3 and 4. Now, what is utilitarianism and who founded this theory? Utilitarianism is also a consequentialist ethical theory. Again, the consequence of the act is more important here as the judge for right or wrong. Okay, utilitarianism is also a consequentialist ethical theory that says okay, an act, rule, or trait is good or right when it promotes the interest. Now, this time it's not the self, okay, but the greatest number of people, or simply say others. Okay. Now, the first theory we have in the first journal idea, and it promotes the self-interest, and this is about self. So just make sure that we can relate terms here that to simply lead you to understanding. So egoism, from the word ego, which means self, and utilitarianism, which represents the greatest interest. So when you act something, if I am a doctor, so I have to think that which serves the interest of most people. Uh, if I am a politician or lawmaker, I have to create a rule that will make the greatest interest or that will promote the greatest interest of others. For myself, I may have a characteristic or choices or behavior that I will act or that I will promote, and that will be good if they promote what? the greatest interest of other people. Okay. Now, example, the traffic lights. That is a rule. That is a law. That is a policy. Okay. And everyone should follow traffic rules. Now, that rule has a good consequence and it promotes the interest of the community. So, in principle, rules like those are very utilitarian. It doesn't only serve me, but it serves the whole community. Now, who founded this theory? So, let's look at the founders. There are three founders. One is Jeremy Bentham. Okay. You have John, or you have James Mill. Okay. And the son of James Mill is John Stuart Mill. Okay. So just mention this theory, these founders rather, they are very important names. If you go to your PowerPoint, go to your utilitarian um, page here or slide. This is the first part. This is the theory that I was trying to describe. These are the founders. Okay, James Mill in the 17th century, and he is in friend with Jeremy Bentham, and John Stuart Mill of the 18th century, the son of James Mill. Now, if you look at their theories, by the way, Jeremy Bentham developed a moral theory based on a quantitative pleasure. You say quantitative pleasure. What is emphasized by Bentham is that everyone should have the maximum value in terms of pleasure. Okay, so pleasure here something that you experience in a physical level, as if like my tummy is filled with food, I'll be very happy. I'm watching a movie, my eyes is well entertained, and the duration of that happiness is long, and that happiness is easily achieved. We call this one quantitative pleasure. Now, John Stuart Mill, the son of James, developed, because he's the student of Bentham's utilitarianism, later on disagreed with his teacher's mindset from quantitative. Then John developed a qualitative pleasure. And he was saying that as human beings, we are more geared towards the the quality of pleasure than the quantity of pleasure. Quality means even the poor who has no food can be happier than somebody who has plenty. That is how human beings interpret happiness, because the one that is in charge of happiness is the self, is my reason, my understanding. So meaning finds its way, which is the quality of pleasure. I may not be seeing movies, I may not be eating what I like to eat, but still I am happy as a person. So quality of pleasure is more important than the quantity of pleasure. Um, you may have those develop somewhere, even in the video, okay, the utility principle, for instance, okay, and they develop that utility principle. Let's look at the second question. The second question is, I'll move this one quickly. What is the ethical foundation of this theory? What part of nature among human beings that helps understand this theory? Okay, so let's look at the ethical foundation. here why it's the alignment is bad. All all right. This is 4. Give me a second, okay? I'm trying to align something here. Anyway, so long as you can see, it's fine. So I will be working on the ethical foundation. When you say ethical foundation again, where is it grounded? Again, again, this is grounded on human nature. So it focuses on the human nature. Now, look at egoism. It is grounded on the understanding of human nature. Still the same. However, it's no longer on the question that we are selfish, but in the understanding that human seek pleasure and avoid what? And this is called the principle of utility. That is where the word utilitarianism come up. And this principle of utility must be directed, to the greatest happiness of the greatest number. All right. Now, this is a kind of theory that expound that when you say human nature seeks pleasure and avoid pain, it's not only me trying to say this, but everybody seeks this. Everybody avoids pain. Now, if you investigate people, why they do things, say, why do you study? Of course, they will answer you because I want to have a good grade. And you're asked, why do you want a good grade? I want to have my course done or my plan, my degree done. Okay, why do you want it? Because I want to have a better job. Oh, why do you need a better job? Because I want to raise my income. Why do you need an income? I want to buy like this and like that. Why? And then you ended up at the end saying, because I just want to be happy. I want to experience pleasure. That is where this utilitarian principle is saying that everybody aims at experiencing happiness. By the way, happiness and pleasure and the utilitarian understanding is very close and the same. Okay? They don't distinguish pleasure from happiness. That's why this is a theory which is very hedonistic. Hedonism is a principle of life or philosophy that says um, happiness is only thing matters to me or is important. No sacrifices, no failures, no suffering. Only success and happiness. Okay, or pleasure. All right. So that will be our way of understanding the answer for this journal idea. Okay. Now, ethical theories argues, okay, argue that because human being, okay, has this nature, it would be easier for them to follow this ethical theory. Okay, like ethical egoism, because I'm selfish. So to be selfish is easy to follow because that's your nature. The same thing in utilitarianism. This theory is easy to follow because If you think of someone's pleasure, then I would consider all the time how to be other centered or to make that pleasure seeking happen. Okay? So I must look at someone's pleasure all the time or happiness all the time. And I must cause that pleasure to others. And that is how these theories look at in terms of understanding what should people think and see that best serve the interests of the self and others. Okay, what would be the advantage and disadvantage of these two theories, ethical egoism and utilitarianism? Okay, now the first advantage I already mentioned is that this is easy to follow. First advantage is that this is the advantage. This is easy to follow because it belongs to human nature. It belongs to human nature. And um, ethical egoism, ethical egoism um, develops self-esteem, okay? Self-acceptance, self-pride, and those are the advantages. Okay, it belongs to human nature. I have this nature of being to please my self-interest. Then it develops my self-esteem, self-acceptance, self-pride, and self-satisfaction. That is the advantage. However, the disadvantage, okay, I will not include that one here. Now, utilitarianism, okay, is helping people think of other people. That's the advantage. It's like Robin Hood. Robin Hood is thinking of the people around himself. He's not only thinking for himself, for his needs, but he's thinking of the poor people, he's thinking of the needy, especially during this time. So we have to think about those who have no jobs, those who are sick in the hospital, the families that have been deprived of their loved ones because of hospitalization and separation. Those are things that we are thinking in a most utilitarian way because we are thinking of other people. Now, the disadvantage, the disadvantage. Now, in egoism, the disadvantage is simply what? It can develop false pride, for instance, uh, hardening of the heart. We can be, there is a term that we always hear, we become arrogant to ourselves. We just believe that we are always right, we are correct. Um, become egotistic. Egoism is different by egotism. There is a distinction of that in the PowerPoint. I want you to look at it so that this can help you distinguish what egoism from egotism. Okay? Now, in this box here, it says there is an exaggeration of the sense of self importance. When you exaggerate self importance, that can be a product of um, egoistic attitude, a sense of arrogance, boastfulness, being inconsiderate, and self-centeredness. I would copy this if you have a chance. This could be added to your disadvantage. Okay, and it's an exaggerated sense of um, self-importance, arrogance, boastfulness, and so on. In utilitarianism, what is the disadvantage? What is the utilitarianism? The disadvantage is simply like Robin Hood. Remember Robin Hood? What happens in Robin Hood's case? And he forgot the rights of what? Other people who can be his victim. Who can be his victim? Okay. Now, there is a video that can help you understand this. The video that says uh, between act utilitarianism versus what? Rule utilitarianism. Now, there's a video, and let's see if I can just go to the clip of that video that can help you think of what is important. Okay.
Should Batman kill the Joker? If you were to ask the Dark Knight himself, one of the prisoners. Importantly, what would you demand so that 19 will? Sounds pretty simple. Sometimes people do terrible things. Their hands dirty. And if one man, that man 19 options, specifically two of them. When Bentham and Mill first proposed their moral theory, it was in a form now known as act utilitarianism, sometimes called classical utilitarianism. And it says that in any given situation, you should choose the action that produces the greatest good for the greatest number, period. But sometimes the act that will produce the greatest good for the greatest number can seem just wrong. For instance, suppose a surgeon has 5 patients all waiting for transplants. One needs a heart, another a lung, 2 are waiting for kidneys, and the last needs a liver. The doctor is pretty sure that these patients will all die before their names come up on the transplant list, and he just so happens to have a neighbor who has no family, total recluse. Even a very nice guy. The doctor knows that no one would miss the guy if he were to disappear, and by some miracle, the neighbor is a match for all 5 of the transplant patients. So it seems like, even though this would be a bad day for the neighbor, an act utilitarian should kill the neighbor and give his organs to the 5 patients. It's the greatest good for the greatest number. Yes, 1 innocent person dies, but 5 innocent people are saved. This might seem harsh, but remember that pain is pain regardless of who's experiencing it. So the death of the neighbor would be no worse than the death of any of those patients dying on the transplant list. In fact, it's 5 times less bad than all 5 of their deaths. So thought experiments like this one led some utilitarians to come up with another framework for their theory. This one is called rule utilitarianism. This version of the theory says that we ought to live by rules that in general are likely to lead to the greatest good for the greatest number. So yes, there are going to be situations where killing an innocent person will lead to the greatest good for the greatest number. But rule utilitarians want us to think long-term and on a larger scale. And overall, a whole society where innocent people are taken off the streets to be harvested for their organs is going to have a lot less utility than one where you don't have to live in constant fear of that happening to you. So rule utilitarianism allows us to refrain from acts that might maximize utility in the short run and instead follow rules that will maximize utility for the majority of the time.
All right. Now, that can be part of the video that I would like you to see and look at how advantageous and disadvantageous would be utilitarianism. Because strictly speaking, in act utilitarianism, uh, a doctor can sacrifice a healthy man and distribute the organs to all the sick. And like a Robin Hood concept, but forgetting the rights of other people. And so utilitarianism developed a different utilitarianism called rule utilitarianism, emphasizing policies and laws that would protect the rights of other people. Robin Hood's victim are the wealthy people. Now, in rule utilitarianism, Robin Hood cannot do anything now to steal from the rich because stealing is stealing. The wealthy can run after Robin Hood and put Robin Hood to jail. Although Robin Hood has a good intention, still stealing, robbery is still bad in the eyes of the law. And so rule utilitarianism can help us develop more or experience more that pleasure and happiness in a long run. Okay, I think that will help develop the journal ideas that we have for the first journal. Okay, so the next part of the journal would be submit this by day 7. Let's go back to the guide, right? Now, this time we will develop the other moral theories, and that was natural law, duty, and virtue ethics. So let us focus on the questions then on that. Okay, I have videos also here as one of the as part of the resources. So I will highlight all these 3 and then copy and paste. Okay, and this is now part 2. So I will just continue in this here, and this is part 2 and another journal for this unit. One is natural law, the other one is duty, and then virtue ethics. Let's develop natural law first. So what is natural law, ethics, and who is the proponent? Now, we have a definition, and if you remember your definition, okay, and I will summarize the definition based on the PowerPoint that you have. So if you look at natural law, so I will focus here. What is emphasized there is eternal law. Okay, what is emphasized here is the moral law, and that this eternal law or the idea of God demands respect, and that is now translated in what God gave us, life, our community, and the desire for truth, which is part of the divine law as an expression of eternal law. Okay, so I will give you a summary of this, the way we should understand natural law. Okay, natural law is the moral law, okay, applicable, I will emphasize this, to human being only. This is very important. That means animals not included. So this cannot be applied um, to domesticate animals, wild animals, etc. Now, only human beings. So right or wrong here is only applicable to us, the community of human life, okay, or human beings. So this moral law applicable to human being with the idea that it is God who is the source of everything. Okay? It's God who is the source of everything. He is the creator. He is the designer. He is the maker. And so he has an idea. Okay, we call this one God's mind. Sometimes God's design. Okay. Now, strictly speaking, this idea is called the eternal law. This is what we think of how God created the universe. This is the way in which the mind of God works. The eternal law, the foundation of all creation. And so, because God has the idea, his mind, his design called eternal law. Now he gave us the divine law, which can be found in the written law called commandments. You can easily relate now why we have the Bible, because the Bible is where God put his words, and now he calls this divine law, so that we will know the eternal law. So from eternal law to the divine. And then these commandments, say the 10 commandments, what are in the 10 commandments? Thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not commit adultery, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's good, thou shalt not bear false witness to others. So you have here the divine law. So because God is the source and creator, the demand for obedience in the divine law is important. That means we are asked to obey, to follow the commandments. But we don't want this one, strictly speaking, to say, oh, just follow the commandments. So this is an ethical theory that says we should abide what God has given to us in his design. For instance, life. Who owns our life? Did we make our life? Parents are just instruments. My life, my kids' life, they are gift. They are gift. I don't choose to be born. And so they are given by nature. And so someone must have designed this. And so I don't have any right to interrupt this life. I have no right to stop this life according to this theory. So this theory is against what? Abortion, for instance. Because I don't have the right to interrupt life because I am not the owner. And so this is theory against abortion, is against euthanasia, and this is even against suicide. Why? Because suicide is an interruption of God's gift to me, to myself. Okay. Now, what all other offenses against life? Torture, for instance, is one. Um, Perhaps there is another, like the in vitro fertilization nowadays, that are means to give chance for couples who don't have a way that they can bear a child, but they can contribute to the process uh, by contributing sperm cell and egg cell and develop that outside the womb and put that back to the womb of a mother or surrogate mother. And the problem there is that I cannot be using all the fertilized ovum in that petri dish, for instance. So I only select one or two, or perhaps only one, unless you want more kids. Um, so what will happen to the rest of the fertilized ovum? And according to this theory, this is an option again, or human intervention to what God wants. And so there is so much criticism from natural law ethicists on this approach. Okay, so other cases against life. Now, about truth. What about truth? The commandment says, the divine law says, thou shalt not bear false witness. So no to lying, no to lying. You cannot lie. Lying is bad. So cheating also is bad here. Okay? In all forms, whatever purpose of cheating, whatever purpose of lying, that becomes bad for natural law ethicists. Okay? So Corruption is part of it because you are not serious to the truth. That could help us understand why this theory is so strict in a way, because we have God as our basis for right or wrong. So instead of the self, instead of others, now we have a new source for right or wrong called God. And so our question then, when we do something, what is God's will? That's very important. Before you act anything, before you do anything, ask yourself, what is God's will in here? That question can guide you to morally uh, deliver a kind of inventory first. My decision versus God's will. Okay, it's hard because you have to discern here which one is for God. Okay, maybe we decide based on selfishness, it's not really God's will, so discernment is really important. And what is the ethical foundation here? Oh, who is the proponent? The proponent here is Thomas Aquinas. Okay, I just mentioned that one. Okay, now um, in the past, you have Aristotle, who started this theory, and the Stoics. And the Stoics argued that a harmony with nature is the best way we can achieve well-being. Okay. Number two, what's the ethical foundation of this theory, and where is it grounded? Okay, I already mentioned the ethical foundation. So the ethical foundation here is the eternal law, or the idea of God, okay, or the mind of God, or the design of God. So this demands respect and obedience. Okay, or else our disobedience or disrespect, okay, will bring what? Destruction. Will bring destruction. A simple example here: who designed that fish must be in the water in the first place? I did not create the fish, so it's God. God who created everything. And he has the idea about fish must be in the water. Okay. Now, people can disobey that nature of the fish. So that's why it's called natural to the fish. It's natural to the fish to be in the water. So if I violate that naturalness in that fish, so I take the fish out from the water, what will happen? Fish will die because I am violating certain nature here. So the same thing with human being. What's our nature? We should eat, drink, have to go to the bathroom. That's law of nature. And we need community. So in that way, that understanding of natural, okay, if you disrespect that, we destroy ourselves. Okay? So the same thing in natural law, when we don't respect God's idea, then we destroy something. My analogy here is about, if you buy electronics, you have a manual accompanying it. So you have to read the manual, you have to obey, respect the idea of the maker in the manual, or else by disobedience, by disrespect of the idea, it could destroy the electronic, for instance, or the item that you are doing or that you are using. Okay, I hope this helps. This analogy can help why this ethical foundation is the ground that we need to act this way. And precisely the argument here, we have to act according um, to the mind of the creator. That is the emphasis in natural law. All right. So we respect life because the creator is the owner of life. We respect property because precisely don't own property. We assume the universe and we become steward of them, but God is still the owner of everything. So we should be mindful of that um, concept or idea. Okay, let's go to duty ethics. I would look at duty ethics on this concept here, and I believe you already put this in your vocabulary. So this is also a moral theory, okay? And this advocates doing what is right for everybody, and this is the right thing to do, even if it is not beneficial to me. The word categorical is important. Regardless, it's categorical. That means it's the right thing, no matter what. This is unconditional thing. Okay, so I will develop that portion here. That duty ethics, okay, is the moral theory that emphasize. I just do my summary here. Emphasize doing the right thing or what is ought to be done. Okay, known by reason, not by culture, not by religion, not by self interest. Okay. Now, why I mentioned this one? Because according to Kant, we have duty to do, not because culture says, not because religion says, not because the self interest says, but rather the source of this morality is reason. Okay, that's why there's autonomy of reason in Kant. Now, the purpose of this is to respect human being as ends and never as means. We should treat everybody as ends, including yourself. And ends here emphasize that we are special being. We are to live by according to our rights and our dignity as a person. And I should not be taken as objects or means for somebody's satisfaction. Okay, so who is the proponent of this? Proponent is Kant. So we have other deontologists, but Kant is the most popular here. Okay, what is the ethical foundation for this? There are groundings, two groundings. And the first one is dignity of the human person. And the other one is autonomy of reason. All right, so I will begin on the dignity of the human person. I will copy that which come from the PowerPoint. Okay, it says here that human being is the master of our destiny. And so this very important point. Is the architect of his own life due to reason, due to free will. And therefore, that human being must be taken as ends and never as means. Okay, and the next slide says, I should what? Uh, deny any contribution to prostitution, slavery, and other form of exploitation, because these are violating the dignity of the human person. So prostitution, for instance, example, prostitution, slavery, and other form of human exploitation denies this dignity of the person. The second part of this is autonomy of reason. So I will look at autonomy of reason this way. Okay, autonomy of reason. This is a theory that says people can know morality by the use of reason, and so reason is enough. I don't need religion, so I don't need religion, which is the natural law theory. I don't need culture, uh, to know right or wrong. So what do we need in this theory? Reason is enough. Reason is enough. That means by reason, we should know morality. So a person can know with absolute certitude what is right or wrong, applicable for everybody. That is the meaning of autonomy of reason. Okay? And the last one on virtue ethics. Describe what virtue ethics is all about, what makes it different, and what is the contribution of this theory to us. And what is virtue ethics? So this is the last one. Virtue ethics is a theory that develops the character of the person by building a life of virtue. Okay, we call this one arete, which is excellent in functioning. Okay, so this is what we try to develop in virtue ethics. We develop a character, and that character should become our guide to live our life for the better. Okay, so there's the goal of virtue ethics here, which I will copy, and that goal is to achieve that perfect functioning, because the more we practice, we perfect something. Like dancing, how will you become a best dancer? Excellent in functioning. How do you become a dancer? Of course, by practice, doing it every single day. The same thing with virtue. How will you master virtue? Do it every day. Master the act of generosity. Master the act of courage. Master the act of honesty, loyalty, etc. So this is to achieve eudaimonia, which is happiness in the practice of arete. The more we achieve the arete, then the more we achieve the eudaimonia. Okay. And the contribution of this theory, the contribution is this will develop a better society. Why? Because if every individual every individual works to practice virtue, that means good life, then it will bring a better society around me. And that's why we try to help children develop virtue. Why? Because they are the future of our society. Children are future of our society. If no parent help them develop virtue, then what kind of person are we producing at home in the family? And that would affect society, by the way. Okay, so our goal here, by the way, and this is how your ethics journal looks like. And when you go back to your assignments, and this is my announcement, we have 2 minutes left, and then we will be done. And let's see, you have extra credit quiz. I would encourage you to prepare for this. We will not have class anymore on Tuesday, but start reviewing this extra credit quiz. Why? Because the extra credit quiz will help you prepare for the finals. Your final exam will be on May 11 to 13. Now, your extra credit is due on May 6th, not Sunday. Okay, let me see if 6 is Wednesday. Yes, Wednesday. So when you submit on May 3 your journal, you are asked to take the extra credit quiz uh, from May, okay, May 3, 4, 5, and 6. You have 3 days to take your quiz. Now, the best way for you to practice the quiz is to do the mastery review here. This cannot be open. The reviewer for quiz 5 is not open because you have to take this extra credit quiz first. Now, this one is your reviewer. Try to master this. Part of this is PowerPoint through multiple choice questions already. The extra credit quiz is easy because you just think of what can you do to help a child, how to make a moral person. So develop a kind of concept. What can I do to develop a child to be a moral person? Like using virtue ethics. Answer question one and two questions based on the given premise here. There is a Plato's theory here. Plato's theory is education. Aristotle's theory or model is practice. Which one is the best way to communicate virtue? Is it by teaching or is it by doing or practicing? And that is the extra credit. Um, that will be our lesson for tonight. I hope everyone can make the best for their last week before our final exam. Okay, do you have questions? Just open your microphone.
Will this recording be uploaded tomorrow?
Yes, hopefully there is a good recording and I could upload it.
Okay, thank you.
Any other concerns? All right. If you have no questions, then if you remember a question, just email me and I will try to answer you. Thank you so much. Yeah, this is our last class. The rest will be extra credit. Why I need you to submit on Thursday? Precisely because I need to make a pre-final grade for you guys so that you will know uh, who can who are to take the final exam or who are not, and the pre-final grade will be your indicator with all the numbers you have, how much you got in class, or what's your grade status even without the final exam score. I will be doing that just like your midterm. I am putting the grade online, or I will show that one to you by email that this is your grade status, and so you are exempted, or you need to take the final exam to get an ace, for instance.
When will you be giving us that information?
That's before maybe Saturday or Sunday, before Monday kicks in.
Okay.
Yeah, or as early as possible. That's why I'm waiting for all these numbers in your journal, quiz, extra credit, and your essay, so that I have all the reports. So I'm already updating your attendance, for instance, because I will put that as an attendance grade. By the way, our live sessions like this is a different grading. Your attendance grade is focused on January when we started the class up to March 10 before the lockdown. you are still subjected to those absences if you miss some. After that, your participation is a different uh, grading. And so what I will do is sum up all those attendance, by the way, of the online, and then just bring you up some extra credit for those who have some attendance. I have a problem with those reports last time that they're missing names because WebEx lost all the informations. There is one time that WebEx has canceled and erased all data, and that has been resolved, but I cannot retrieve back all your attendance records. So for those who've been present, I have the email already. Your comment on the announcement will bring me up to that information that you are there. All right.
Nice.
If you don't have, yes.
I have a question. Can we submit for evaluation for extra credit?
Okay. Now, did you notice in your, are you still seeing my screen?
Yes.
Okay. Did you see I have many places that you can uh, do that? Did you see EGLS here?
Yes.
Okay. Now, this is where you evaluate. Now, when you go to module 5, and there is a link, there is a link. Did you see the link here?
Yes.
The completion marker, I should move this one down because that's supposed to be earlier. Um, the dates here is 26, so you may not be seeing it. So I'll be putting it down to our weeks this time. Okay, so I will move this one down. This is where you will submit your receipt. And I will put this one down here. Okay, now, did you see it now?
Yes.
Okay, this is where you click and submit your extra credit evaluation. Okay, so you can you may be able to see that in that link. Any other concern? If none, then thank you so much. Just email me or give me a kind of heads up if you have issues.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.